Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
Horrified is a board game based on the Universal monsters. This is a very cool theme. You sometimes will see knockoffs of like Frankenstein, whatever, but you have all the Universal monsters in one game. And that immediately gets the radars going off for me. I'm like, very cool theme. Right on the front of the box, you're going to see all of the monsters sitting there. And those of you that may not have grown up watching these or caring about makeup effects, etc., I live right by Universal Studios that has like a makeup show they do about the Universal monsters, and I used to have more of a presence there than they do now. But those of us that remember that these are like the beginning of horror movies for us growing up as children. They're kind of hokey and old now, but these things have lived on, and today we have a board game based on it. This board game really reminds me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer by Jasco Games. Really does, and I really like that game. Here we are back. Now, this is a mass market game. I think it had maybe a Target exclusive for a while. I could be wrong on that, but that's where I got mine. Mass market game. It's a little cooperative game about beating these monsters. Here are all the things I like about the game. I like that it's cooperative. We're fighting against these monsters. We're not just destroying them and killing them. The Wolfman, you're trying to get an antidote. And that brings up an excellent point. Each of the monsters will move differently, react differently, and you have to defeat them differently. Very asymmetrical. Now, the beginning of the game, the difficulty says, hey, start with Dracula and creature from the Black Lagoon. Then you can do any two monsters, and you add a third, and you add a fourth, and it just has a whole bunch of stuff going on, making the game more difficult. There's a solo mode that plays almost exactly like the real game, the multiplayer game, which is fantastic. I don't like going after points. I want to beat these monsters, and that solo mode is very, very good in this. This is a game that's very simple. Most of the game's going to be moving around, picking up items, or using your special ability, and then attacking the bad guys. Keeps it very simple. This isn't something that's going to be like a heavy Euro. It's going to be a palette change for some players, but it is a great family game. I like playing with my kids. I like playing with non-gamers can pick this game up and play it. There's a lot going on here. It's right in that Pandemic style. It doesn't play like Pandemic. I don't want to give that out. But it's that same difficulty level of introduction to the hobby. I think you're going to get a lot of people to play this game. With the Universal Monsters, I think a lot of people will say, hey, I'll give that a shot, and they're going to like this game. And this game can be a very good introduction to the hobby for some gamers, especially people who like that theme. A few things I didn't like about it. The font on some of the standees are a little small. The cards are a little thin. I'm going to sleeve mine up. That can be easily fixed. So you're going to have some little nitpicky things. The game is simple. It's not an overtly hard game. You know, it's not Life here. We just spinning and moving. There's some things going on, but it's light. It's introductory, and that works perfectly for me. No complaints about that. I really like this game. Is it a 10? Probably not, 'cause I like heavier Euro games. But man, for a family game, this is a pretty hard 9 for me. The theme goes a long way for me. So if you're just like, Tilly, I don't like this theme at all, you know, maybe knock it down a point. But for those of us that like the Universal monsters, like Frankenstein, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Wolfman, the Invisible Man, Frankenstein, and his bride. They do say they do acknowledge in the rulebook, they know Frankenstein is the monster. His name is the monster. But for their purposes, they're going to call him Frankenstein. And I'm okay with that. You should be too. Don't nitpick this game. It's really fun. Have fun with this. Pull this out with your families. Pull this one out with your friends. This is a surprise hit. A game you may not have heard of that's going to blow your mind for the simplicity, the fun, the asymmetrical bad guys, the asymmetrical good guys, each with a different power. This is a plus to me. It does feel a little bit like you've been here before. Some very common things you've seen in other games. But if you don't play a million games a year like I do, you're going to squeeze right into this, and you're going to have a hit on your hands. Horrified, an absolute keeper! So here is Horrified. You're going to see very attractive cover with Universal Monsters on the front. If you're a fan of that, as little logo tells you Universal Monsters, Dracula, the Bride of Frankenstein, the monster, which is known as Frankenstein, Invisible Man and such. Very, very cool cover. I like it quite a bit. When you open it up, you're going to get a rulebook, which we'll take a look at in a minute. I thought this was a nice touch. This is the board, and it says, we feel it would be a little unkind to present this game without a just word of friendly warning. You're about to unfold one of the strangest tales ever told. We think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to, well, we warned you. It reminds me of those old movies they used to do, and they used to have those things up. that you'd be shocked. You're going to have a board of a city. This reminds me a lot of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer board game by Jasco. You see an old Arkham Horror 2nd edition type map here. You have a track up here and different locations that you're going to have. Very colorful. The places on the board you're going to go to kind of pop versus the one there just for decorations. I find this to be a very good board, believe it or not. You're going to get a little bit of an insert here. You'll see there's a place here for your cards that you can get out. You have your player A cards. You have 4 of those. Then you have your monster cards and your perk cards. The perk cards will always give you like a picture and a little power on them. And the monster cards tell you how many items are coming out, a little power, and how the monsters will move. And they have different artwork on them. These cards are very, very thin. You're going to want to sleeve these cards almost immediately. They are paper thin. And while I love the artwork and all that, the cards could have been thicker. If I had to choose, I'd rather have the artwork because I can always sleeve it on my own. You're going to open this up. You're going to get a number of little doodads and miniatures we'll look at in a second. You're going to have some overlays that you'll be utilizing for when certain monsters are out that will change some of the locations. They fit right there on the board. You're going to get a number of different characters you can be. Each one will have different number of actions at the top, and they will have a power. And there's one character that doesn't have a power at all because she has the most actions. So that can be very helpful. They're not double-sided, but they are very cool. There's a pretty good number of women to men. I think there might be more women than there are men in this deck. There will be a number of these little standees that you'll use for the different people moving around the board. And this will be the little NPCs. The font is very small in this. That's something to point out that I wasn't a huge fan of. I mean, you got to get pretty darn close to see who is what and where they're going. These guys are just colors, so they're kind of fine. Then you're going to have this, which is really hard to get out of the box. You're going to get one of these for each of the monsters. And I wish there was something here, but that's how I get mine out. That's all you can do. And each of the monsters is going to look a little bit differently. You're going to get the Mummy, Frankenstein, and the Bride. And they tell you that that's not Frankenstein, but that's what they're going to call him in this game. You're going to get Dracula, the creature from the Black Lagoon, the Invisible Man, and the Wolfman. Now, each of these are going to work differently. In the base game, in the beginner game, you're going to start out with the creature from the Black Lagoon and Dracula. Then you can do any 2, any 3, and if you're going hard mode, you can do any 4. Each of these are going to move a little bit different. They have a different frenzy, which will matter, and a different way at the bottom how you defeat them, which can be very interesting when you're playing it. So a lot of variability in this. Then you're going to have these little miniatures. These are not the most detailed little miniatures. Thank you for trying, though. There's the Bride, and they come in different colors. Here's the creature from the Black Lagoon. You can kind of see them. Here's the Frankenstein's monster. You're going to have Dracula with his cape up. Here is the Invisible Man. Yes, he is visible here, but that's just his clothing. You cannot see him. And last but not least, the Mummy. So not a whole lot of detail, but not bad for a mass market game. Not bad at all. That's the components. I feel like everything is good. These are a tad thin, but they just lay on the board. It's the cards really that are going to give you the most problem. Sleeve these right away. Here's the rulebook for Horrified. There is a link to a video on the front if you want to learn how to play. Picture of all the components, and it's fantastic. Being that's Ravensburger, you don't expect anything less. Picture with setup, and you have the monster setup and the player setup, which is great. The objectives and the different difficulties that you can do here, and what you do on a turn. This is the overview of what you do on a turn. This is it. Then it will start breaking things down. Here are the different actions you can do, how the villagers work, how the items work, and an example right there with full pictures, etc. Very good. Then the monster phase and how they work. The game end. Then it's going to go over each monster. Each monster is going to be asymmetrical. They're going to work very differently. It's going to give you examples and teach you how each of those work. Not very difficult, probably if you're watching this video, but if you don't play a lot of board games, then this is something you want to utilize quite a bit. An appendix, and there's a solo version of the game that you can utilize if you so choose. The back of it, wish it had a player aid. It does not. It's just credits. It is what it is. But I actually give this Horrified Rulebook 2 thumbs up. Great job, especially for such a mass market game. They really kept it simple and did a great job. First thing you'll do when you're ready to set up is put the game board down. You put the terror marker on 0. Everybody will then pick a character they want to utilize. The characters are very easy. It's how many actions you're going to get on a turn, and this will be your power, and this is just the color they're going to be. and your starting location where you would start out on the map. So, for example, the Explorer will get 3 actions, but has a special action. Place your hero in any non-water space, and then start at the camp. Well, the Mayor will have no power, but have 5 actions. Start at the theater. The Professor will have 4 actions. Move any hero or villager 1 space. Starting location is the hospital. So everybody will do something different. You will pick who you want and put your miniature on the board. If I were to choose the Mayor, she would come on the side. She'd be a theater, is where she would start out. You'd put her out on the theater. And say the other player picked the Scientist, and you would put the Scientist out on the Institute, and they're ready to go. Then you would draw 12 items from the bag, and you're going to use these to seed the board. Each one of these tiles is going to have where they go out printed on them. You can see this one would go to the Institute, and you would place it there. Now I'm going to do that with all 12 of these. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to pick 2 of these monsters to start the game out. The first time you play, you're going to pick the creature and Dracula. You're going to flip them over, and you can see a setup for each of the characters on the back, and you will just do whatever it says. So if you were picking the mummy, you would go through here. I picked the creature and Dracula, so I will do these 2. So for the creature setup, I will put the camp down over top, and that will just go right on top of it. He will start out in the lagoon, and then I would take his sheet, and I will put the boat on this location right here. And I will just set him there for easy viewing. Dracula will go out on the crypt, and then you will put out, you have 4 coffins that you're going to put out in 4 different locations. I will put 1 at the crypt, 1 at the graveyard, 1 at the cave, and 1 at the dungeon. And then I will set this aside for easy viewing for all players, be able to utilize that as a reference sheet. Now on your turn, you're going to do one of a few things. First thing you're going to do is you're going to spin your actions. In this case, she would have 5 actions. If it were the blue player's turn, she would have 4 actions. The majority of what you're going to be doing is moving from a place that's adjacent to another adjacent location. So the move here would be 1, 2, 3. That would be 3. So 1, 2, 3. I can do whatever I want. Then for 1 action, I can pick up all of the items at a location. So that's 4. 1, 2, 3, and then 4 to pick all these up. And this would go over here to the Mayor. Now, if you had a special action on your character, if it was the blue player's turn, for an action, I could do this. You may add 1 to the strength of any item you use. Or the green player, if she were in the game, you can place your hero in any non-water space. So instead of moving adjacently, you just pick up and you move. Very powerful. That's why she has less actions. This one allows you to move any 1 hero or villager 1 space. Inspector, place your hero in a non-water space with a monster. So you can utilize your special action. Those are possible actions that you would have. As the game progresses, these villagers, these gray ones, will come out on the board, and you'll be able to move those. So if you're in a location, you can just move the villager with you. And if you look at the bottom of the villager here at the top, it's going to say shop. So you're trying to get her to a shop. If you're able to get her to the shop, you'll be able to gain one of these perk cards. So everybody will start the game out. Each character will start the game out with one of these. These are things you can play during a hero turn. Place a hero in any non-water space. Skip the next monster phase, but draw and place 2 items. Choose 1. Place the invisible man in any space. If he's not in the game, or if he is, move any monster 3 spaces. Move each monster up 2 spaces. So these will allow you to break the rules and do extra actions as the game progresses. So you get a few of these throughout the game. You want to make sure you utilize these at the best possible times. Now, if you're in a fight with a monster and you ever have to fight them, which we'll get to in a moment, you will roll the dice. Now, if you roll this, it's a hit. And what you can do is you can give up an item to defend, and this will go into a discard pile, and that hit does not count. If at any point you take a hit and you cannot defend it, then anything you have will be dropped where you go. You will go to the hospital and lay down, and the terror track will move up. If they ever defeat a villager, the NPCs, before they can get to the spot they're going to, you will move it from the board, and you'll move up the terror track. If you ever get to the end of the terror track, then you will lose the game. Now on the dice, you can also roll this exclamation point, and each monster will react differently. This one says move the boat back 1 space. On Dracula, place the current player's hero in Dracula's space if the exclamation point is rolled. So each one you have to refer to what you're doing here. Now, for the players to win, you have to meet the requirements met by the bad guys. I'm going to go over all of the bad guys in a moment, but just know in order to win, you have to be able to beat the first requirement and the second requirement for all of the monsters that are on the board that you're playing against. If it's not on the board, then you will ignore it. After heroes have taken their turn, you'll turn over the top card of the monster deck and do what it says. The top numbers, you always do from top down to the bottom. So the top number tells you how many items that you're going to draw from the bag and put out. So I'll draw 2 from the bag, and I will place them out on the board at the location listed. So this gun would go to the precinct, and this one would go to the shop. Once you've done that, you do whatever words is here. Move the bride 2 spaces towards Frankenstein. The bride is not in our game, so you would completely ignore it. But let's pretend like you have one like this. Place Maria at the barn. You would take the Maria NPC marker, and you would place her at the barn. And remember, you're trying to get to the spot that's at the top. So that's how the NPCs will come in. This one says place Dracula at the crypt. Well, Dracula's in our game. And he's not at the crypt, so we would simply move him right back to the crypt. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. This says move the frenzy marker to the next monster. The frenzy marker is this, and some of the cards will, when you get it, you'll put on whoever has the highest frenzy on their card, on the monster cards, and this will move, and some of the cards like this one will activate the frenzy. Then you move each villager 1 space toward the location. And then you do whatever's on the bottom here. In this case, whoever is the frenzied monster will move. And he'll move 3 spaces until he hits somebody. If he hits somebody in 1 or 2 spaces, he will simply stop. Then you'll roll 2 dice to see if you hit anybody that's there. In this case, you would hit them twice, and both of those would need to be blocked. In this case, you would move Frankenstein, then the bride, then the frenzied, all one spot with 2 dice. Remember, if they're not in the game, you just simply ignore it. The creature would move 1, the Wolfman would move 1, and the Invisible Man would move 2 spaces each, and then roll 1 die. The mummy would move 1 space, creature move 1 space, Frankenstein, and then they have 3 dice they roll. So items, do whatever's here, and this is how they'll move and attack. Very easy to play. So that's a quick overview of Horrified. First thing you're going to do is move around the board. Mainly what you'll be doing is pick up these items, hoping to defeat whatever the win conditions are on this. You always want to have one of these, because whenever somebody attacks you, and most of the win conditions are going to be reflected on this, which I'll go over all of those in a moment, and you can utilize your special ability if you happen to have one. Then you're going to flip over a monster card, add items if applicable, do the power if applicable, and then move and attack if applicable with the monster card. You'll do 1 after each turn. Who should buy this game? Anyone who is interested in Universal Monsters. If you like the Universal Monsters, the Frankensteins, the Draculas, the Creature of the Black Lagoons, the Invisible Man, Wolfman, Frankenstein, the Bride, then this is the game for you. This is the game you've been waiting for. This is almost a perfect Halloween game. If you like having a night of like Halloween or Christmas centered around a game, this is your Halloween game you're going to want to play. It's entry level. Don't expect a heavy Euro. It's cooperative. Don't expect a competitive. It does have a very good solo mode I think people are going to be happy with. This is what I'm going to tell you. This is going to fit a wide variety of people. One I'm going to tell you to check out. This may be, and probably is, an insta-buy for you. I'm very high on this game. Very good. Absolute keeper for me. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you liked it, please like it and hit that little subscribe button. That really helps out the channel, lets us know that you're getting the videos that you want. If you agreed or disagree with what I said, feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I promise that I will comment back. Thanks for watching, and everybody else, keep playing games.